According to some critics, the Gnostic Gospels, including texts such as the Gospel of Thomas, Secret Gospel of Mark, Gospel of Peter, and Gospel of Mary, offer a different gospel story which is equal in historical and spiritual authority to the canonical New Testament books, which means the true gospel is unidentifiable. This theory fails since there is no evidence whatsoever any of the Gnostic Gospels were written by such prominent early church personalities as Thomas, Peter, Philip, Judas, Mark, or Mary Magdalene. In relation to this, Serapion, leader of the church in Antioch, said during this late 2nd century, "We, dear brothers, received both Peter and the other apostles as Christ did, but writings falsely attributed to them we reject, knowing that such were not handed down to us." Also, Gnosticism began in earnest after Christianity, and the earliest Gnostic Gospels, such as the Gospel of Thomas, were written between 140 to 200 AD. The Gospel of Thomas was likely written after 175 AD, since it includes distinctively Syrian ideas, names, and passages, which we know did not appear before creation of Tatian's Diatessaron in 175 AD. In any case, even a generous 140 AD date for the earliest Gnostic Gospels is still more than 100 years after Jesus' 33 AD resurrection, which is too long after the fact for Gnostic writings to be considered historically reliable accounts, especially since all eyewitnesses were dead by this point. On the other hand, more than 100 years after the resurrection fits well within the time frame when we would expect to see the formation of Jesus' myths. Sharp contrast to the late Gnostic writings, creedal material in the New Testament specifically related to Jesus' physical resurrection was recorded within just a few years after the event. Included among these early creeds are Luke 24:34, Romans 1:3-4, 4:25, 10:9-10, 1 Corinthians 15:3-8, Philippians 2:6-11, 1 Timothy 2:6, 3:16, 6:13, 2 Timothy 2:8, and 1 Peter 3:18. Further, the New Testament gospel message was deemed authoritative by the 1st century church, and its written autographs were being copied and circulated long before the Gnostic Gospels were even invented. The earliest, honest, and historically accurate New Testament gospel accounts are much more trustworthy than the late, legend-prone, non-eyewitness Gnostic writings. Additionally, Gnostic writings certainly do present a different gospel with a questionable historical basis, unlike the verifiably historical canonical gospel of Christ. For example, Gnostics believe salvation came through special knowledge and not the grace of God. They also taught the Old Testament God was a mean and evil deity who created a prison-like world for humans to live in. Additionally, they thought Eve was correct to take the serpent's advice in the Garden of Eden, and Judas Iscariot was the most intelligent disciple, because he was the only one who understood Jesus' desire to finally be freed from his human body. Part of the Gnostic gospel tradition also includes a Redeemer myth, which involves an original man named Urmensch, who allegedly fell from heaven and was mutilated by demons. Pieces of this original man supposedly reside within each modern individual and provide a spark of eternity. According to Gnostics, demons have tried to cover up the fact we are eternal heaven-born souls and dwelt by a divine spark, but God apparently sent a heavenly Redeemer to enlighten us to our actual superhuman nature. The Gospel of Peter declares wooden crosses can literally talk, while Jesus and his angelic companions' heads were really able to extend above the clouds as their feet stood firmly on earth after emerging from the empty tomb. Strongly implied in the secret Gospel of Mark, which good evidence indicates was a hoax invented by a 20th century man, is the concept Jesus required young men to have sex with him to become a Christian. The often glorified Gospel of Thomas includes statements which the real biblical Jesus would have never made, such as the pantheistic declaration, "Split wood, I am there, lift up a stone, and you will find me there." Also contrary to what the biblical Christ would have said, saying 14 of Thomas' supposed gospel states, "If you pray, you will be condemned, and if you give to charity, you will harm your spirits." The sexist attitude toward women in the Gospel of Thomas is also not characteristic of the biblical Jesus, as exemplified by alleged quotes including, "Let Mary go away from us because women are not worthy of life. Lo, I shall lead her in order to make her a male, so that she too may become a living spirit, resembling you males. For every woman who makes herself male will enter into the kingdom of heaven." According to saying number 7, Jesus declared, "Blessings on the lion if a human eats it, making the lion human. Foul is the human if a lion eats it, making the lion human." The later embellished Gnostic writings surely do not represent the true gospel of Christ, containing the early, honest, historical, and eyewitness written New Testament. Interestingly, the first line of the Gospel of Thomas does mention the living Jesus, which appears to be a direct reference to the fact Christ had risen from the dead and was still alive when this line was written in the 2nd century. So it seems not all Gnostic Gospels entirely reject the resurrection's reality. Other Gnostic writings affirming Jesus' resurrection include the Treatise on Resurrection 45:14-28, 46:14-20, 48:49, and the Gospel of Truth 20:25-34, 30:23, and 27-33. Overall, the Gnostics are contradictory, for while they affirm the resurrection in some cases, they also regularly deny the physical raising of Jesus' body. The contradictory Gnostic Gospels are not as trustworthy as the consistent New Testament Gospel. Further, there is no concrete evidence for the existence of an original Q source document upon which critics believe the New Testament Gospels and later Gnostic Gospels were based. It is simply a hypothetical reconstruction which attempts to eliminate the authoritative doctrine of Jesus' literal resurrection. Additionally, a non-physical resurrection would not have inspired the cowardly and despondent disciples, countless Jews or strong skeptics like Peter, Paul, Thomas, James, and Jude, to voluntarily suffer and sacrifice their lives. Finally, if Jesus' body did not physically rise, then it still would have laid in the tomb. This fact would have been quickly made by Jesus' highly motivated enemies, and Christianity would have died. However, the reality of the empty tomb has indeed been admitted by Jesus' ancient critics.